And he's pitching it sideways. We were missing trees like by yo much. About a week before the event, I got a call from Oscar Kowaleski. I said, there's a Lamborghini team. They need a third driver. They had a guy from Penske who was actually going to be the navigator. And he had to drop out at the last minute, I guess, work obligations, whatever. And would I be interested? And I'm thinking, okay, Oscar, I'll take you. I know you. People had always heard that the Lamborghini was built, the LM002, for, I guess, the Saudi army or somebody in the Middle East. And it was supposed to be able to run 100 miles an hour through the desert. So Lamborghini had been bought by Chrysler at this point. They bring in the first two in America. They get them certified, and they wanted us to go out and show that it was durable and fast enough to go 100 miles an hour in America. We actually did a lot of 115. And that it could make the distance. And I was very surprised it did really well. No mechanical breakdowns whatsoever. They send over to drive with Joe and I, the other guy, Sandro Minari, who was, I believe, 3-time world champion at the time, twice for Lancia and the Stratos. And then he moved to Ferrari and won a year there. And never met the guy, but I did a little research and found out he was kind of royalty. We get these extra supplies. We wound up running all over. Marina Del Rey, we need flares, and because the SCCA was now running the tech inspection. And they got into their little god complex as to what they needed and what they didn't. And the SCCA tech guy was like, show me this stuff. We had like a bag of flares and this and that. And he was like, okay. But he was being real hard. Past tech, we really still don't know each other that well. Come to find out that Sandro is annoyed because I don't have any rally timing equipment set up, no fancy computers, because the guy from Chrysler said Chrysler wants nothing in the car, nothing to screw up the electrics. You can't put it in. And I didn't have anything anyway to put in. Oscar just said go. He didn't say I had to bring anything with me. We're sitting there. It was like 106 degrees. It was like ungodly hot for that time of year. And it was just before the Long Beach Grand Prix. And we're sitting there and we hear this, hey, hi, how you doing? And it looks at this Jay Leno. And I said, oh, Jay, how you doing? And he says, well, this is really nice. And I said, this is Sandro Minari. And he goes, Sandro Minari? Oh, wow. He leans in and he shakes his hand. So Sandro was pleased that he'd kissed the ring. And then we took off. The first stop is Sears Point. And we're booking pretty good. And I'm looking around, and there's no cops, nothing. Nobody's saying anything. Wasn't that crowded. We're going along, and some white Jag passed us. That's all I noticed. You get a lot of looks in this thing. About a mile down the road, the Chips pull us over. And I'm going like, okay, what's going on? He says, well, we had reports you were racing a white Jaguar. And we're going like, I didn't even really see the white Jaguar, and we weren't racing them. And they're going like, what kind of truck is this? So we go and we open up the hood, and next thing you know, there's 4 Chips all standing around looking in the engine. And basically said, okay, guys, you can go. We've been following you all the way up. We saw that you weren't, you were handling it fine. You weren't, any kind of risk or hazard. But, we were watching, so just take it easy. We had a little incident where there was another car behind us following us, and I didn't know if it was another competitor or not. And the snowflakes were just starting to fly, and we're only going like 70 miles an hour. It's no big deal. And the cops pull up behind the car behind us. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess he got tagged, and we just kept on going. And about 5 miles down the road, another police car comes up and pulls us over. He says, why didn't you pull over with the other guy? I said, I didn't know it was for the 2 of us. I never heard of a dual pull. We weren't racing or anything. And he starts asking me the questions because I'm the one with the best English. And even though I wasn't driving, and he had the mic open at one point. And I don't know what I had said, but I think it was something that's like, well, I don't know these guys. I didn't know, but they were following us, and we thought you were just pulling them over. Well, apparently they heard it and were not pleased because they thought I was ratting them out. So we get to the next fuel stop, and these guys are there. And they start following me through the store. And they come out and they go like, "You turned us in." I'm going like, "What are you guys talking about?" And so, "We heard you on the radio." And I'm going like, "Okay. What did I say?" And he says, "You were saying that you didn't know, we were following, you thought it was us that, they were going for." And I said, "Yeah, that's what I thought." They didn't accept it. So from then on, there was bad blood. And we get into Bismarck, and it is 27 below, and the wind is about 30 miles an hour. It was bitter cold, and we're still having our LA jackets and things. We didn't have coats that were that heavy. And Sandro and I go into the hotel for the checkpoint, and Joe was doing something on the truck. And I said, "Joe, we left the key in the door. When you're done, lock the door and come in and meet us." And the other guys were just in front of us, and they were sort of hanging outside the car. Joe comes in. I said, "Did you get the key?" And he goes like, "No, there was no key there." We go back out. There's no key anywhere, and the guys are nowhere to be seen. So we're like, okay. Now, we got a locked car. He had no problem getting the door open, but the problem is we didn't have a key for the ignition lock. Joe, being a Lamborghini, at that time, he was a parts importer for North America, or that region anyway. And no problem. He gets his tools out. 5 minutes later, he's walking into the lobby with the steering wheel and the lock all together. Gets the hammer out, breaks the ignition off, comes back, hooks it back up, and we go in, and he says, "Okay, now when you go to start it, you need a screwdriver to start it." And we're like, "Okay, as long as it works." But the problem was, after that point, we were going along, and this car was attracting attention. And at one point, we were running low on gas, and it only had the 40-gallon tank. It didn't have the normal 70. And we were in the middle of nowhere, and I'm going like, what are we going to do for gas around here? And we had picked up a cop following us. So I went off on a ramp, and we get up to the top, and it says the nearest town is 15 miles that way, and it was getting late. I'm going like, there's probably no place there to get gas. We don't have enough gas to get there. So we turn the car off, we swap, and one of the Italian guys gets in. We come down the hill, and the cop's on us. And he says, "Why did you go up there?" And I said, "Well, we were looking for gas." And then he said, "Why'd you turn off the lights?" Well, we just, we switched drivers, and we wanted to turn it off, make sure, everything was good. We started back up, and we came down. And he was unhappy because they all had Italian licenses, and the car was registered to Chrysler. So it's like, he can't write a real ticket. So he goes, "All right, fine." But as he's coming up, and I said, "Joe, remember, don't use the screwdriver to turn the car off where he can see it." So the whole rest of the time, anytime we were stopped, which was quite frequently, it's like, okay, slide it in, put it down so you don't see that the ignition is busted out, because I didn't want to try to explain that one. Directions were a little sketchy, and this time we were running roads, and then we were going into the woods, and we were doing all kinds of weird things. And most of the cars in this event were not off-road capable. And come to find out, I said, we're on the wrong road. And we're about 2 or 3 minutes behind at this point. So Sandro puts it in gear, gets in his rally mode, and we get into the woods, and it was ballet. He had, every single second, he had the weight of the truck on a different tire. And it's just this whoom, 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 whoom. And we're going down paths that are maybe 6 inches wider than the truck. And he's pitching it sideways. We were missing trees by yo much on each corner. And he's flying. And I'm going, yeah, go, man. I had my hand on the belt, but I'm like, I'm watching. This is ballet. This is a master class. So we're going along, and we finally catch up to the car that was in front of us, which means now we're running fast. We come around a blind bend in the woods, and there he is. It's like, slow the thing down. Some rednecks on the way down in Georgia, South Carolina border tried to crash us out. They came by, they threw a full bottle of beer at the windshield. And this thing was like, it's smashing. They're yelling, and they're trying, they're weaving in front of us and crap. And Joe was driving. He goes, I'm going to kill this guy. And we had the CB antenna off, so we couldn't call for help. But there were truckers around, so I started saying, let's do some smoky stuff. And there were 2 trucks, and we managed to squeeze in between the 2 of them so that they couldn't get us, but there was no way for us to get up a ramp that wasn't there yet. So we're going along, and finally we see a ramp at like Buford. And they're still waving and, trying to just mess with us. And Joe was in the far left lane, and we got up to the ramp, and we're just about past the ramp. And he goes, woof. And we stick it up there, and we go, on the other side is a Waffle House. And we get out, and I call the police, and I'm going like, these guys are pretty, out of it. I don't know what's going on. They're dangerous. And apparently they had been harassing other guys. Get down to Brunswick, do our little thing there, and we come out, and the guys from Montana are in front of us. And Sandra was just pissed. So he's taking it up to 110, and he's like on their tail. And I said, give them some space. Give them some space. In case they get hit by the police, you have time to slow down. They're the ones that are going to get the ticket. And he's just red mist. And he's on it, and sure enough, bam, cop gets both of us. So Sandra is sitting there with his international license and, whatever. And the cop looks at it, and he's like pissed. He comes over to me, and he says, where are you from? I said, Pennsylvania. And I show him my license. He goes, how come you weren't driving? I said, well, it's my turn to navigate. And he goes, damn. Because I'm the only one he can give a ticket to. So I go home. About 2 days later, the guy calls me up for my story as, we're doing a thing. And I had basically written it down, and I dictated pretty much this whole story. The magazine comes out, and it's like verbatim. And I didn't even get like a writing credit on it. I'm going like, oh, come on, man. But there were some good shots of the thing, and it's like, okay, at least, we got our coverage. Chrysler was happy. And I got to do something that was totally unusual, and very rarely would you get to do this. I was Team Lamborghini.
Most of us carry around wallets that look a lot more like suitcases than like a toolkit for what we actually need for our day. The Ridge makes a line of wallets and bags that help you to carry exactly what you need and nothing you don't. So leave the junk at home and go to ridge.com/VinWiki and use the code VinWiki at checkout for a discount. Let them know how much you appreciate their support of the VinWiki channel.